Hi everyone. I think it was a few weeks ago now, about 3 weeks ago, since we did a question and answer session. I think people said it was okay, and a lot of people watched it. So we thought we'd try it again. So we've got a number of people that are asking us questions today. So clearly, as I said, we have many other things that we need to talk about, and I'll try and do a bit of a statement, given an update on how the city is responding to COVID and what our plans are for the future. But in the meantime, I'll just try to answer these questions that are going to be posed to us by a number of people that are joining us today to ask those questions. So let's get on with that. And as I say, we'll be in touch shortly with a more comprehensive statement about what the city and how we're managing dealing with COVID and our plans for the future.
Hello, Mayor Anderson. It's Andy Bounds from the Financial Times. Can you explain how a socially distanced public transport system can possibly work in a city like Liverpool? What do you need the government to do to make sure that buses and trains can operate with people not getting too close to each other to make it dangerous? Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that question, Andy. I think the problem is, mate, is that a lot of people are going to be really apprehensive and really frightened about using public transport, especially while we have no coronavirus antidote, no way of dealing with the issue, no vaccine to deal with the issue. I think it's going to be a really difficult time for public transport over the next few months, especially while social distancing is in place. So I guess, all the bus companies can do and we can do here within the city and the city region is try to make transport as safe as we can by making sure, for instance, that we don't allow them to get ram-packed with people, and we maintain that social distancing inside the transport itself, whether that's the trains or the buses. I think what government can do to assist and help, and I know it's constantly talking about money, but it's only central government that has the resources to deal with these issues, and I think they have to help combined authorities. They have to help transport authorities themselves deal with this by subsidising transport to an extent that you don't have to want to cram people into buses or trains. You can actually run more buses and therefore reduce the number of people that's getting in. And I think that is the only way of dealing with the public transport issue and restore some sort of confidence by in the public that you can travel safely on public transport. I know that's a long-winded approach, but as I said, only central government who has the resources to support local authorities, support transport authorities, can help by subsidising public transport more.
Hi, my name's Helen Wilkie. I live in L17. Bearing in mind the way we all live and work has changed radically this year and may have to change in future years as well, I'd like to know what is happening with planning applications. I know a load are going through for things like housing multiple occupancy, apartment blocks, dense city centre high-rise apartments. I'd like to know what's happening with these, bearing in mind that we don't know what the demand is going to be like in future years, and also the public health implications of living in very dense housing and working in open plan offices. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Helen, thanks for that question. And I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Clearly, in big conurbations, big urban centres, there's been a high proportion of contact rates and contracting the disease COVID-19 because of that density of population. So I understand where you're coming from, and in relation to the planning process, we are keeping the planning process going as best we can, and we're using new technologies to do that. But the issue of houses of multiple occupation is a problem for us, not just during COVID or and when and how we come out of COVID. It's been a problem for us with some HMOs operating, and in particular in certain parts of the city, like where you live, L17, where we've seen them being used by unscrupulous landlords who've allowed properties to be turned into HMOs to actually then use them for students and for other people, and it's a real problem and a real concern for communities. So we are trying to deal with them in the best way we can, in terms of through the planning process. But it's difficult because it's the law, and properties are allowed permitted development, and also we sometimes find it really difficult to stop HMOs being built in certain areas, but we are looking at what we can do legally to stop that. Your point about the tower blocks and that sort of thing, of course, I guess if COVID-19 hadn't happened, then mostly we wouldn't be talking about high density, high type of properties, because a lot of people say to me, we should build more of them, especially within the city centre, because that's where people want to be, that's where people want to move to. The cities are, the hubs of culture and economic, retail shops, and that's where people want to live. So it is a big issue. How do you satisfy that demand, which I think there is still a demand for high-rise properties in certain parts of the city, and in particular the city centre. So it's about trying to get that balance right. And I think a lot of cities, not just in the UK, but across Europe, are trying to deal with that. And I know there's no, proper solution to this. It is about supply and demand, and the ability of people to put in applications and planning applications to build them. And so, in some senses, we again have our hands tied behind our back with regards to the planning process and how many of these can be built. But in the main, I think that's a problem for every city, especially in the UK, where we see lots of large developments. And I think, they're not a bad things if architecturally they're done right, and in certain areas as well. So we'll just keep our eye on that. But thanks for the question.
Hi Joe, thank you for keeping us safe. We were just wondering, when can we go back to school?
Well, great question, Gabriella and Ruben. Thanks for that. I've got 6 grandchildren, and Thomas and Lucy and Mason go to school, and they're really missing school, really missing the friends. And even though they are doing some learning at home, they miss going to school, they miss seeing the teachers, and they miss seeing the friends. So it's difficult for you, I know, that you get bored at home and you want to go to school to see your friends again. What I can say to you is that we are trying as hard as we can to make things safe for everybody, and that includes making your schools safe, because this is a nasty disease, and it's a disease that can spread and go from one person to another very, very quickly. And we want to make sure that you're safe. We want to make sure that your teachers are safe, and the people who work in your school are safe too. So when we've got to the stage, when we get to the position where we think it's really safe and it's okay for you to go back to school, we'll make that decision. But it might take a few weeks yet. So try and enjoy the time at home. I know, as I said, you're missing everybody, but soon you'll be able to go out a little bit more and hopefully return to school after the summer.
Hi Joe, Jay from the Guide Liverpool here. We've seen some really incredible things come out of Liverpool over the past couple of months, whether it be people doing amazing fundraising challenges, people working at our food banks, the food hub, and tons more. What one thing stands out for you, and what will you take away from this crisis in terms of how inspiring Liverpool has been?
Jay, that's a good question about what makes me proud about what's happened in the city and how we've responded to COVID. And I think, touched on a few of them there yourself in your question. And there are quite a number of things that have, really touched me, really made me feel proud of my city, and how people have responded, and whether that is the number of people that are, delivering food to people, taking food to people in the food banks, and the support people have been given to food banks. And I think that the fact that even in streets around the city, neighbours are knocking and going shopping for elderly people and looking after each other, all of those things are really inspiring. But I think the thing that sort of I got really touched by was the fantastic response when we put out the call for volunteers, and we asked for people to make contact with us and help us to help people in the city. And we had 3,000 people within hours that had actually contacted us to offer their support and help. So much so that we've only used, I think, about 900 volunteers. But that was an amazing response, and I'd like to thank every single person who made contact, even if we didn't use you. Thank you so much for your way you responded to that call. I'll always remember that. So thank you to everybody that did that.
Hello Joe, I'm Sarah. I'm a regular cyclist commuting in and out of work from South Liverpool to town. I've done it for many years. It's good for my health, it's good for the environment, and it's a really speedy way of getting around this wonderful city. I often encourage my colleagues to try and do the same, but they're worried and nervous about riding on our roads. Your new plans are fantastic, but what are you going to do about addressing their anxiety about taking to our roads and enjoying the benefits of cycling around this beautiful city?
Sarah, thanks for the question, and thank you for making the point about the announcements that we've made on cycling and improving cycling for people in the city. Of course, we're not just doing that, we're also doing a city centre movement strategy, and we're also trying to widen pavements and remove barriers. It's called Open Liverpool. We want our city to be more open, our restaurants and our shops to expand a little bit, especially with social distancing. So we're doing a lot of things as well as the cycle lanes. But you're absolutely right that the way we've gone about and the way we are going to go about increasing the number of cycle lanes across the city is going to be, I think, one of the things we'll look back on and say we seized the moment, we seized the opportunity to do things differently and reimagine public transport, reimagine how we do things in our city. So I'm delighted that we are leading the way in this, and we've moved money that we'd set aside in the budget forward, and we're starting to roll out the cycle lanes. And we're calling them temporary, but a lot of them, I hope, will become permanent, and the way we get people to travel around the city will be permanent. I think your point about safety and about how we inspire people and get people to join in and get on bikes and start using bikes is a great point, really. And I think we've already started to look at doing some of that, and how we encourage and motivate people. I've said and have been on record as saying that I've got real concerns about allowing my grandchildren to go out on bikes because it's not safe for them. And I said that months and months ago when I introduced Simon O'Brien as our cycling champion here in Liverpool. And I think we've moved a great deal since then in terms of what we're doing and what we're planning, and with great speed over the last couple of weeks. I think what we need to do is try to maybe encourage those who are thinking about going back onto bikes again after many years off them, is to take some training again and maybe do like a cycling proficiency course. And we've got some of that happening at the minute, but we need to expand and roll that out. But I think as we introduce more cycle lanes in the city, I think that'll give confidence to people that they can safely ride around our city on the bikes. And as you rightly said in your question, you know, when you come from South Liverpool into the city, you know, some great views, you're getting fresh air, you're getting, you know, fit and healthy as well. Ironically, isn't it, you know, that we're seeing a lot of people in hospital because of the conditions, respiratory problems that they might face through air pollution, but also, you know, through lack of fitness. And, you know, I say that as somebody who is obese and somebody who is unfit. I'm trying to get myself fit, and hopefully if I lose a couple of stone, I've lost a stone, I've got a bit more to go yet, probably another 4 or 5. And if I get to get a couple more stone off, I'll be investing in a bike myself. And I used to love cycling when I was a youngster, and even in mid-20s, I used to use a bike. So I'll be looking to get in the saddle again. I think it's important that people like me, you know, the alpha male, where it might be sort of, you know, we're not bothered and we'll get out there and try. We remember that there are other people that might feel a bit tentative and a bit worried and a bit concerned. So we've got to encourage them, motivate them, and show and demonstrate to them that it's safe to cycle around our city. And that's what we intend to do. So thank you anyway to all of you for your questions. I enjoyed answering them. I hope they've been, you know, as best I can, straightforwardly as I can, answered your questions. We will do it again shortly, but as I said, we'll also make a statement and give you an update of some of the things that we're doing, some of the proposals that we're putting forward, and some of the challenges that we face as well. So we'll be in touch shortly, but thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the question and answer session.